Hello and welcome to a City Voices interview with Greg Ralls. Greg wrote a book called Straightjacket to Success. He's a working engineer in Australia. And perhaps the most interesting thing is he's a survivor of alternate states and psychiatry. Some people call it psychosis. Let's talk about this book. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
G'day, Dan. Yeah, I'm a survivor. Nice way to put it. Thanks.
So I have like 30, no, I have 18 questions. So why don't we get started, okay?
Sounds grand.
So Greg, why did you write Straightjacket to Success?
That's a great question. I'd written a couple of memoirs and I didn't really think I would write another book after doing that. And I guess it's the muse, maybe, something mystical and mysterious, and it just, it comes across you all of a sudden that you feel like you have this creative urge and you go ahead and do it. So, but I also wanted to write fiction, and that's what I did.
Is it true in real life that you actually witnessed the beheading of your mentor, something that happened in the book?
No, it's not true. Yeah, it's important to establish that. But what did happen is that in the workplace, I did experience something traumatic. And then I thought I'd heighten it a little, and I had worked on Borneo, where in the book a work colleague loses his head, and through an encounter with some headhunting tribesmen, and so yeah, I thought, well, that's pretty dramatic. Like that'll convey the sense of trauma that the main character in the book lives through.
So you
Yep. So I had worked on Borneo, and so I was familiar with the territory, and I was aware of some headhunting that did actually occur there in the 1990s. Fortunately, a couple of years after I'd been there, in the place that I went to.
Now, Borneo is that a country?
Borneo is an island, so it's there are two parts. It's Kalimantan is an Indonesian territory, the southern part, and the northern part is Malaysian territory. So I visited the Indonesian part for work.
Okay, and so the beheading of your mentor didn't happen, but you wanted to create a tremendous trauma because you were a witness in the book to the beheading, and that was an extreme trauma because the rest of the book is like a spiral out of control, and then ultimately a miraculous, well, a recovery back to some semblance of normality. Yep. But what happened in real life? What was your what was the real trauma that spiraled you out?
Well, we have talked about this before, Dan, and that was when I was working in the Northern Territory here in Australia, and I encountered a kind of a creepy guy that I was alone with on a work site, and he just behaved really oddly and played mind games, and there was this kind of implied threat that I might lose my life if I kept hanging around the guy as I was required to for work, and it was just it didn't go well with me. And so what I wanted to do is to take that experience, heighten it by making it even more traumatic and obvious to the reader in this fictional account, and then link that to a person's decline mentally, in that it triggered something in the character in the book, Steve, who is kind of based on me.
Okay, so the beheading is one example of creative license, but tell me everything that really happened in your life that you fictionalized in the book.
Okay, the things that really happened. So I really did, man, most of it's more closely linked to reality. So there's a lot, yeah. There are only, I'd say, three parts really that are heavily fictionalized, and that's the beheading of a work colleague, the trauma, some things to do with the relationship that the character Steve has later with Shaz in the book, Sharon, and which I won't reveal too much about the kind of the fictional element of that, but and then the ending of the book. In because another thing I wanted to explore in the book was the idea of medicalization of people's distress and medical diagnosis and treatment according to a medical model with psychotropic drugs.
All right,
After
we'll get to that, I promise.
sure,
Let's go to the second thing that was fictionalized. So how is, in real life, how is your relationship with your wife?
so my relationship's pretty good. I guess the part I fictionalized was the sequence of events at the beginning. Um, you know, anyway, Shaz falling pregnant before marriage, and and later having an affair. So those two parts of the relationship were just fictionalized.
Okay, and how's your relationship with your son?
Great, yeah, yeah. So, and I think that should come across in the book that um, you know, there's a strong connection between the character Steve and the young lad in the book. So anyway, that's pretty much how it
Okay.
is.
And I want to let everyone know that it is like it's 10 a.m. here in New York City, but where Greg is, it's after 11 p.m. and he's at his work site. So he's naturally you're not 100% energized, and I just want to explain why that is. So what
Yeah.
about what about the relationship with your parents?
Uh, yeah. So Betsy and Ivan in the book are based on Elsie and Ian, my own parents. Um, and Mum's sadly no longer with us, but Dad's still kicking on, and I've had a great relationship with my parents. So and again, they were very supportive through my own crises, and that also is reflected in the book with Betsy and Ivan and their son Steve. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
the strength of the family relationship was really important for me to convey.
Oh, yeah, that's good to know that the extraordinary sacrifices and support of your family, your parents particularly, in the book is also true for your real life. What now
Mhm.
in the book, there was this college professor who was a psychologist who suggested you go off the meds, but not before not before training yourself to limit the power of the persistent voice in your head. You know, because when
Mhm.
you go off the med, the voice takes control of your life in the book.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
tell us how that parallels reality, your real experience?
yeah. I could go into some depth there, but I think the uh, you know, there's a hearing voices movement in the world, and they they're not anti-psychiatry. Um, they're not necessarily pro-medical model in the way that people approach voices that people might hear that others don't. And so kind of the professors in that camp, and there's also an Institute for Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal, International Institute for Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal, you may have heard of, Dan. The idea of coming off psych drugs, you know, doctors so easily prescribe them, but they rarely ever know much about deprescribing. And so I wanted to explore that in the book. And so through with the aid of the professor's teaching, as it were, because he's kind of a teacher in a way, and a mentor and a guide to Steve, he manages to get Steve off the psych drug that he's been taking, which he doesn't entirely want to be on, because it has led to adverse kind of weight gain, diabetes, some sort of fairly serious adverse effects. And anyway, so all of that adverse psychiatric drug taking adverse effects has happened in my own life. The one thing I've not successfully done is withdraw or discontinue a psych drug successfully. So so that's the third thing that's fiction in the book.
Okay. Now in the book, there's a one persistent voice, and it happens to be the voice of your mentor who was beheaded. But in
Yep.
real life, how many voices did you experience?
Okay, so yeah, my own experience was quite markedly different. I guess that was also yeah, the voice. For the sake of simplicity, I made it a voice in the book. But for me, it was a different experience than the way I've described it as a fictional rendering. For me, it was this internal, like a telepathic, hearing other people's thoughts type experience. You know, that was my interpretation of it. And the thing is that for me, when I take this psychotropic drug, this antipsychotic drug, or tranquilizer, it tends to very largely eliminate that experience for me. Not entirely, but so I mean, if I were in a room full of people, you know, it might be I don't know how many voices there'd be without taking a psych drug. It might be several. Yeah, just whoever I'm talking with or in the proximity to.
Okay, so in the book, you eventually live your life med-free, but in real life, you still take meds. Can you tell us in real life what your relationship with medication is like?
That's interesting because I've recently been reading a book by Peter Lehman and Craig Nunes, editors of this book about psychiatric drug withdrawal. I'm not persuaded to ever try coming off again. Sorry, excuse me. I've tried several times. Cold turkey, gradually. It didn't ever work out for me. And that journey is reflected in the book. So for me, that's my relationship, is one of kind of resignation to just staying the course.
Are there any circumstances in which you might try to go off again?
I don't think so, because to my reckoning, the last experience I had when I last tried was quite upsetting to people around me, and it was also very challenging. it's challenging for me, and there was a certain amount of risk and dangerousness in it, and so I think, to my reckoning, given my sort of position of responsibility as well as a professional engineer and as a father, a family person, husband, I don't feel at this stage in my life I can really justify selfishly making another attempt at coming off. The potential disruption would be too great.
Is the main reason is the main reason that going off creates a change in your behavior and orientation to life that your loved ones find very troubling? Is that the main reason?
Yeah, it's not just, well, yeah, I mean, there was a big change in behavior. Like, I flew to England and claimed asylum, and I spent 7 weeks in an immigration detention center when I last tried coming off.
Mhm.
And immigration detention in itself is quite a scary thing when
But
you're
Greg, imagine if you were all by yourself in the world,
mhm.
and there was no one that you could affect because everyone is gone. You're just by yourself. You lost everyone, but if there was no one who would be there's no one to be concerned about you, there's no one to worry about you, you're all alone. Would you try to wean off these meds again?
Yeah, of course I would, but um, it's not like that in the world, and you, uh, I'd quite happily be as mad as I had to be to get off them for a period of time, maybe indefinitely. It
Now let
doesn't
me
matter.
ask you. uh, in that scenario where there's no one but yourself in your world, and you
Yeah.
decide what is why would you attempt it again under those circumstances? What is the draw of being off meds?
Oh yeah, it's well, for me, um, it's the adverse effects. I think it's the weight gain. I was never, until I took a drug called Zyprexa, I'd never been overweight. I mean, everyone knows the propensity with Zyprexa for weight gain, right? It's pretty well established. And so until I took that, I'd been slim, and then, you know, it's these things now are irreversible in my life, but um, metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes now, they're challenging things to live with. And I think, well, why would anyone want that in their life?
So
It's kind of
you would choose madness over poor health.
madness with the prospect of coming through it.
Coming through the madness.
Yeah.
Do you think that is possible for you? For anyone?
Um, yeah, I do. Of course I do. And I do think it's possible for, not for everyone, but for a lot of people.
So what is it about you that gives you faith that you could see yourself through that madness?
Um, this is the thing. Yeah, that's the other aspect of it, is aside from the potential disruption, you need a good support network and understanding people that around you that'll support you in your desire to come off. So for me, I don't perceive that I have that in my life now.
What
I've
might
never
that
had.
look like? What might that support system look like for someone who needs it because they're attempting madness again?
It'd be some professionals, I think. It'd be family or friends who, uh, yeah, I think, yeah, it'd, I don't know, it'd have to be everybody that you're kind of closely acquainted with.
All right. So
Yeah,
in a world in a world where your family and friends were like, hey man, he's suffering physically from these side effects. Yes, we'll support him even if he goes mad again. We know that we'll support him so that we can see it through, so he comes out the other side. Your friends and family on board. Everyone's going to suffer for a while, but they're willing to do that because of the health risks of the medications. And so the family and friends support, and you have the professionals, who are paid to do this kind of thing. And then
yeah.
and in that scenario, hopefully you come out the other side. What do you think coming out the other side looks like?
For me, it's one of two things. It's that uh, the the so-called symptoms abate, or if they don't, then I learn coping strategies to live with voices or unusual thoughts.
Is coming out the other side does that mean you reconnect with your rational mind?
Not necessarily. I think I'm well connected with my rational mind now, and
Well, we're talking about going through madness here.
yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the I've never found the madness I've experienced to be in any way distressing. So,
But yet
I would imagine,
your
I would
behaviors were mad, were crazy, and your family was worried. Everyone was worried about you. So isn't there a disconnect there between rational behavior and the behavior of madness?
imagine. Well, I guess that's why you need the support network. You need the people to, even if it means a hospitalization or that it doesn't, being completely off a psych drug doesn't work, but there's a lower dose that I could take that seems to be effective. You know,
All right, all right,
harm minimization, because
right.
we're talking absolutes here.
Right.
It's either
I was
on or
just,
off.
we were just you were indulging me in, this idea of what would be necessary for people in our situations, because I'm in that situation too, where I take these meds. If
Yeah,
we were to wean off, we would need this support. We would need the professional and family and friends, and then somehow see ourselves through to the other side, like going on a raft through very choppy waters, the waters of madness, and then
yeah,
somehow the raft lands on a piece of land, and we can and I see that piece of land as being like a return to rationality, uh,
yeah,
but also having incorporated everything that we learned on the trip, and leaving the raft behind and starting a new life with a fresh new perspective in life. That's how I see the ideal way psychosis will be handled. And the raft, you have other paddlers who are family and friends, and perhaps you know I don't know,
yeah.
whatever it takes to keep that raft afloat, because if you drown in the waters, that means madness has got you, and you might die in madness. There might be no hope. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So you
no,
indulge me in that. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Do you have
No,
anything you want to add to that?
yeah, I get that totally. I mean, we know from history, right, that some people make a full recovery without psychotropic drugs. Some people make a mixed or partial recovery, and some people just don't recover. And so the kind of recovery that I would have after the rebound, because there could be a rebound in coming off and withdrawal, um, it's not known. Like I can imagine what it might be like for me. And I think I would have the inner resources with supports um, to get through, but I don't know for certain. You know, I'm not a crystal ball gazer, and I don't know the future, what it would hold if I were to ever do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the disruption, it could be months or years of disruption to life, which is not a practical thing for me as a civil engineer. And with a young son and a wife who has needs as well. So, or they both have needs. So, yeah, it's just a sense of responsibility. I've tried it in the past and it hasn't worked. And I've made this fictional account where there is an alternative and it works and it all ends up being fine. It's a fairy tale ending.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on a little bit from that. Um, do you struggle with anger?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm a pretty calm person, very level in yeah in my emotions.
Okay, and do you attribute that to medication assistance?
No, I've always been that way, so I don't think the medication really influences things one way or another with regard to the
Okay,
emotional levelness or
all right.
stability.
Did you ever re-experience paranoia, even on the medication?
Not on, no,
Oh,
no,
that's good.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you, oh, go ahead.
Only when coming off, and
Only went off, yes.
prior to being on.
Okay. Do you sometimes struggle with sadness or depression?
Never.
Really?
I think I had about 20 minutes of depression once about 30 years ago. Maybe, well, 20 years ago.
Okay.
It's very vague, isn't it? That I'd been working a lot and it wore me down, like 9 months of this one particular job. And it was very demanding and I didn't see a way out necessarily. So the prospect of it continuing led to this kind of bleak outlook, and that lasted for about 20 minutes. So,
All right. Now, the character in your book who guided you off medication, the professor, he was a Sado-Christian. What is Sado-Christianism?
it's a religion of a kind. I once heard this, I don't know where I heard it, but I once heard or read that intelligent individuals are quite capable of inventing their own religion. And so, anyway, so that stuck with me. And so I invented one. And not to like oversell my own sort of intellectual ability, but
So what
but
are the tenets of Sado-Christianism? The tenets.
well, it's long and it's written in another book that is, you know, under a pen name, and but
Oh,
I just thought it was nice to include that in this fictional story. That
okay.
it all kind of my two memoirs and the book I wrote under the pen name.
Well, what
Um,
does the word Sado mean? Is that Latin for something?
no, no, it's just I don't know. It just came to me.
Okay, okay. Um,
Hmm.
what is your message to young people who enter the mental health system for the first time?
my message to young people. Oh God. Well, I'd
Think
say
about
hold on. Hold on. It can be a rough ride. Um, and don't lose hope and don't give in. But also stay true to yourself.
When you say don't give in, what do you mean? Don't give in to what?
Well, don't give in to other people's opinions too easily. So maintain your own way and way of understanding, explore, educate yourself and find your own meaning. But don't listen too much to other people, because I don't think any one person or branch of science or medicine has all the answers. And yeah, so for me, right, and I'm talking about me, and this is advice to other people. It's if you took like the two main guild interests, psychiatry and psychology and mental health, for me, to my reckoning, they both have some kind of usefulness. And yeah, finding sort of the best way through it, the challenges that a young person might face, is kind of going to be a lifelong journey.
All right. Now, what are your final thoughts? Something we didn't discuss that you want to impart upon our small audience?
Final thoughts. You won't find the book unless you contact me somehow, because it was an ebook available on the internet. Now I just don't have it there anymore. I've got a bunch of paperbacks in a box at home, and but yeah. So anyway, we've spoken about a book, and there are some around, and they exist in some form. They're just not readily
Is
accessible.
that all you want to impart upon us about the book? Is there something else? Is there something more profound even than the book?
More profound? I don't know. At this time of night, my brain's not full of profound things. It's I don't know that it ever really is.
Okay, how about this? What are the three most important things in life?
The three most important things. Oh God! So you could have prepared me for this. You could have given me some hints. But the three most important things are sleep, food, and recreation, I think.
Greg Ralls, what does it mean to be happy in this life?
Dan, you've almost stumped me again. To be happy is to be free of worry, to be free of distress and pain that is unbearable. And it's to be, for me, it's to be free.